Hello everybody and welcome to the next episode of Reading Nature. My name is Elliot Newton and I'm the Biodiversity Officer for Kingston Council, and these are lovely sessions that we run with the Kingston Library Service to tell you more about the amazing wildlife species that we have here living in Kingston and some of the really great green spaces that make our borough so special. And today I'm standing in Tolworth main allotments, and across the borough we've got about 20 different allotment sites, and these are great places for people to come and grow some food and relax, but also they're really lovely spaces for a whole range of species. And today we're going to focus on our reptile species, because these are something that people don't really normally think about, but actually we have a few reptile species living here in Kingston. But before we start on the sort of very Kingston angle, just at a UK level, across the UK, we have currently 6 different species of reptile that we recognise to be native. 3 of those are lizards and 3 of those are snakes. The 3 snakes that we have, probably the most common snake that you'll probably see in London is the grass snake, and out of most of our different types of snake, these or reptiles, they actually live in quite wet environments. They love swimming, so they love ponds, they love lakes, they love rivers, so that's the sort of snake you will probably find in those type of environments. All our other reptile species, like dry sort of heathland environments, which is the sort of area around me, sort of mimicking almost. The other snakes that you can find in London, we also have adder populations. We haven't got any adders in Kingston, but they're probably one of the rarest snakes that we can find in London, and they can be found in places like Hounslow Heath. And though they are venomous snake, they pose no real danger to humans as long as you let them be and just enjoy their presence. And then a real rare snake that we have in the UK that isn't recorded in the London area is the smooth snake. And then jumping on to our lizards, the rarest type of lizard that we have in the UK is called the sand lizard, and they're only sort of found on dunes and stuff, so we don't have them here. And then the 2 species of lizard that we have right in the borough, one is the slow worm, which is a legless lizard. It looks a bit like a snake, but we have them in the borough, in different places all over, sort of dispersed all over the borough. And then we also have the viperius or common lizard, which is what we'll talk about today. So the common lizard is, even though it is a common lizard, it is a species that is actually in quite significant decline. If you look at sort of a global level, we actually call it least concern, which you might think it's in a good position, but actually it is a species in decline, which is a real shame. So they're not as common as they were historically. But they are a species that we can find pretty much if you look in the right places in the summertime when they're not hibernating. And good things to look out for when you come to common lizards is they have an olivey green sort of skin to their top, which is quite distinguishing. They can change a little bit, but that's the sort of colour. They're about 12 centimetres in length. About 6 of those centimetres are its tail, so it's got a really long tail. The females and males look a little bit different. The females have something called a ventral line, along their vertebrae. They've got along their spine. They've sort of a dark line that goes along there, and the males have more spots on them, and those spots are called ocelli. So if you know what to look for, you can sort of tell them apart. They've got slightly different shaped heads too. But talking about their tail, the tail is a really interesting part of their anatomy. So like all of our lizard species, they have the ability to drop their tail, and that is a sort of a defensive mechanism that they use just before they believe they're about to be predated. So lots of things eat lizards, things like buzzards, corvids, even things like hedgehogs can be known to eat our lizards. So they're a prey species for many things. So that means they have to be aware and sort of have abilities to try and stop themselves getting eaten. So one thing they'll do if they're scurrying along and they think they're coming to the end of their life because something's about to eat them, they can drop their tail as a distraction. So if you look at the vertebrae of a common lizard, it has a little section called a fractal zone, and around that fractal zone it's got a really big sheet, a thick sheet of muscle, and what they can do, that muscle can contract and snap its spine effectively, and as it snaps the spine, it will compress or vasoconstrict the caudal artery, which gives the blood supply to the tail to stop itself from bleeding out, and then that tail will just fall off and start wiggling on the ground. And as it's wiggling, that poses a distraction, so whatever is trying to eat the lizard can focus on the tail and give the lizards a chance to escape. Unfortunately, this is something that lizards can only really do once. They don't grow their tails back. Some people think they do, and also when they lose its tail, it's a big sort of loss of fat and sort of muscle and stuff. So it makes it less able to survive in hibernation because it's lost a lot of its body mass. So what it might do actually, it might come back and nibble on its tail if whatever it is trying to eat it has left some behind, so it can try and regain some of its fat stores. So we know what eats lizards, but actually they are predators themselves. What they'll do, they run around and they mainly eat invertebrates. They have a really important role in the ecosystem, controlling invertebrates. So really great for things like gardeners. So they'll even eat things like slugs. So they're very much a gardener's friend, lizards. And when it comes to spotting lizards, you only really see them in the summer months when they're not hibernating. But they have these things called basking sites. Like all reptiles, they're cold-blooded. So what they need to do is to gain the heat from the sun to warm themselves up so they can go about their daily business. And they do something called sort of mosaic basking or basking near the edge of sort of structured habitats. So in the wild environments like heathlands where you have big heaths, like sort of heather and stuff, they'll be just on the edge. So they'll be on the edge of the heather trying to get all the heat. But also if something comes to try and eat them, they'll be able to scurry back off. They also love things like basking platforms. So if you have bits of wood or even bits of environments like this, like bits of like sort of rocks or anything, they might bask on top of that to try and gain the heat, but also be able to escape quite easily if something scares them. And a really good tip when it comes to looking for lizards, if you see it basking, they're quite scared, so they might just shimmy away. But if you stay there for about 15 minutes, they sort of come back to their typical basking spots. So stay where you're sitting, and they'll hopefully come back and frequent the spot that it was using previously. Another interesting thing about lizards is how they mate. A lot of females actually have some scarring around their necks because that's where the males attach themselves when they mate. But the really interesting thing about lizards or common lizards is actually the colouring of their bellies for the males also indicates a little bit of the behaviour that the males have. So for example, if the male has sort of an orangish belly, it's known to be a more aggressive species, so that'd be more likely to attack females. Whereas a paler belly or a whitey belly means it's a sort of more placid lizard. So you can sort of learn about its behaviour just from how its colouring is, which is a really amazing thing. But yeah, hopefully that's given you a bit of insight to these absolutely fantastic creatures. So always look out for them as you're walking around, especially things like allotments and sort of drier areas. And we look forward to telling you more about wildlife on our next Foodie Nature session.